Hello, I'm Zaccura and welcome back to my channel, and today's video is going to be kind of a chill, old school art and chat. I'm going to be painting with Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolors. Very long name. And kind of just talking through it, showing some of my different steps that I took throughout this piece that maybe is interesting. And a little later in this video, I'll also be chatting a bit about finding balance as an artist slash content creator slash freelancer slash whatever the heck else you want to put in that. Because it can be really easy to fall out of balance when you've got all of these different things to manage and you end up hardly finding the time to actually draw and make art, which is kind of ironic because it's kind of where everything stems from. So this subject is actually quite a juicy one and one that probably deserves an entire topic discussion video about. And maybe I will make that in the future when I'm better at maintaining balance myself. But for today's video, I really just wanted to be laid back and old school. Just paint something and have a chat with you guys while sipping a big ol' mug of tea. So grab your mug and let's hang. The illustration I'm painting in this video was really a spur of the moment, experimental, gosh darn it, I want to paint something right now situation. I had this idea stuck in my head of a big floating koi spirit in a dark night sky, possibly inspired by some of the artwork from one of my favorite artists, Yume, whose art book I've recently just been like flipping through and oohing and eyeing over. And a pretty interesting reoccurring theme in a lot of her work are like flying fish. So I think I definitely drew some inspiration from that for this illustration. And I have still been meaning to improve my watercolor skills, especially with dark scenes, because I've always struggled to get watercolor to look as dark and rich as I want them to. So I was like, all right, let's paint this as a watercolor illustration. I knew I would be painting the background first, so I used some masking fluid to cover up both the koi and the girl character. And speaking of which, the paper I'm using is Strathmore 400 series cold press watercolor paper. Wow, all of these art supplies have such long names. And this masking fluid is Winsor & Newton brand colorless masking fluid. I will have all of the materials I use in this video listed in the description box in case I miss anything, but there you go. And once the masking fluid was dry, it was time for the paints. And to give me a little bit of a guide for what colors to use, I did some color thumbnailing on my computer. What I did was snap a photo of the sketch, import it into Clip Studio Paint, and I painted over it so I could get a feel for how I wanted the finished piece to look. I've mentioned this method of digital thumbnailing in previous videos, and I find it's a really great way to sort out color palettes and so on, because you can paint directly on top of the actual finished sketch, and you don't have to waste any paints or paper because we all know you're cheap. But the downside is that it can be difficult to actually recreate the colors with traditional paints. It always ends up looking a little bit different than the digital image, but I've kind of gotten used to it and I'm okay with it not being exactly the same. It's really more just for the general aura, the general idea. As mentioned, I have always struggled with getting my watercolor paintings to look nice and dark. So this time, I was determined. No more being impatient and not letting layers dry. No more blaming the paints for not being saturated enough. I was gonna do this right, like a patient, professional, grown-up artist. So I did many layers of wet on wet washes, alternating between deep blues and blacks, and most importantly, letting each layer dry completely before going in with another layer. On the fourth and final layer, I added some deep violet. I think in the palette it's called Imperial Violet or something. And that really helped make the sky look so much richer and deeper and just mwah. And once that layer dried, I was like, yes! Gosh dang it, look at that beauteous night sky. Frankly, I do feel like it could have actually used even one more layer, but I waited long enough. I mean, it takes like 45 minutes of drying time between layers, so if you do the math, that's like 3 hours of just waiting. Torture. Once the sky was finished, it was finally time to peel off the masking fluid. Very satisfying, very satisfying. And get to the rest of the painting. So, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this painting was really a spur-of-the-moment situation, and it's something that I've been really trying to focus on more lately, to really make the time to make art for the sake of making art, without any other plans attached to it. You know, just practicing and experimenting and learning and painting without thinking about what the illustration I'm making is for. Because as a artist slash content creator, you tend to have a lot of avenues to manage. Whether that's YouTube or social media or running an online shop or if you have a Patreon, so on and so forth. And sometimes the managing of these different avenues can take a lot more of your time than the actual art making. So to compensate, you end up throwing yourself into this habit of only creating art that serves some of these other purposes, which is a habit I fall into personally way too often. And don't get me wrong, managing these other avenues, making YouTube videos, making shop products, are all very creative outlets as well, and I personally find a lot of passion in these activities, but it's a different kind of creative outlet than drawing and painting is. It's all a lot more planned and structured. And I think it's really important as an artist or creative person in general that you leave yourself enough room to just do whatever the heck you're inspired to do during those moments when you're sitting alone in your room surrounded by your paints and brushes. Because practicing and experimenting and just creating because you feel like creating, regardless of how useful the results are, is how we grow as artists. It's how we improve and ultimately how we even get to that place where we have valuable things to share with others and put out into the world. It all starts with being a reclusive weirdo, my friends. So I'm definitely making more time to just make art and just get better because being an artist is being a forever student. Put that on a shirt. And heads up, this finding of balance of mine may end up resulting in more process videos slash speed paints here on YouTube of just random pieces of art that don't really have much of a story attached to it. Kind of like this video, but maybe even simpler, because even in this video I have sort of a topic to discuss. But like, if I don't have anything to talk about sometime, as unlikely as that is, I might just do an aesthetic music process video without any narration. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about that, because it's been years since I posted a video without narration, and I think there's a reason for that. But at the same time, I do take my video editing pretty seriously now, and I would not put out a video that I didn't feel was at least aesthetic to watch. So that actually might be kind of fun to explore. Let me know in the comments if that is something you would watch. Full disclosure, I'm definitely not shifting away from my usual content. You know, this Zaccura soup of philosophical mumbo-jumbo, cringy humor, and tutorials. But kind of in addition, I guess, there might be just a little sprinkle of just random illustration process videos. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I have really no idea if I actually will or not, but it sounds like something that would make sense. So we'll see. So moving back to this koi spirit watercolor illustration, when it came to painting the koi and the girl, I did a bit of an experiment, and the idea was that I wanted the koi to feel a little otherworldly, a little spirity. So to create a contrast between it and the girl, I painted those two subjects differently. For the girl, I did a lot of more messy painting, if you will. I added multiple colors at the same time and let them bleed into each other to build up the textures and shadows and lights all at the same time. I find doing this creates a look that is more realistic, I guess. It has a lot more texture and the edges are a lot softer, whereas the way I painted the koi was much more controlled and flat with much harder edges. I let each color dry and then layered on top and didn't really mix the colors together on the paper. And I guess you guys can tell me whether that experiment worked out or not, or if it's even really noticeable. But personally, I do feel now that the overall piece might have been more impactful had I stuck with one kind of rendering throughout, either more textured like the girl or flatter like the koi, because right now I really like how both halves of the painting look, but I'm not sure if they have as much oomph as I was hoping to achieve when they were brought together. But nitpicking aside, I do feel like this is one of my better watercolor illustrations I've made so far, at least in my humble opinion. I managed to achieve some things that I have always been struggling with, like that dark night sky. So that's an achievement. And I really feel like I learned a lot from this painting. I'm really inspired to do more night scenes with watercolor now that I know that sigh, I just have to be patient and wait for the layers to dry. So painful. And I also really want to explore both the more messy way of painting like with the girl and the more flat, controlled way with the koi. So all in all, successful! Yay! But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this painting as well, so do let me know what you think of it. And that wraps up this video. Thank you so much for watching and listening and spending some of your day with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Also be sure to hit that little bell so you stay notified on upcoming videos. And before you go, if you have a minute, be sure to leave a comment letting me know what you think. What do you think about me posting random process videos? Do you have any tips for staying balanced as an artist and content creator? What is your opinion on the Marty McFly orange vest I gave the girl?
This is heavy, Doc.
Whatever, I always love hearing from you guys. Thank you to everyone who has supported me by purchasing my books or other items from my shop. If you'd like to check out my shop or subscribe to my newsletter, all that and more can be found over on my website, zaccura.com. Link is down below in the description box. And until next time, stay awesome, stay inspired, always. See ya!